And we're recording. Good afternoon, everybody. We've got 3 minutes to go before we start. People are joining as we speak. That's pretty cool. If you'd all hang around a bit for everybody else to join in, we will be back with you in 2 minutes now. Welcome in, everybody, as you come in. Thank you so much. We'll chat with you all in 2 or 3 minutes.
Oh, it's lovely to see all these names here.
Isn't it exciting, Tim?
Oh,
I'm guessing you recognize a few of them.
plenty.
Good news.
Next time I'll play music or sing to you.
Tim, I've heard you sing. Please, let's not.
I do that.
I think maybe play music.
Yeah.
I can whistle. There's some more. Hi, Amanda. You good?
And I can't respond to you, Tim.
That's fine.
Okay.
I'm just saying hello to Amanda. Martin, yo, this is so cool. Heinrich, sorry, I hope I don't leave anybody out and hurt their feelings. So nice to see everybody.
It's nice. Folks, we had about 30. I've had about 50 registrations. We're up to 10 people in the room. 17 people, lots of people in the room, but not yet the number that registered. So if you'll be kind enough to hang in there for a bit, give everybody sort of a 2 or 3 minutes to join us before we actually officially start, I would be very grateful.
I've got 18 people in the room so far. I'm just going to give it 1 more minute, I think, and then we'll get going. I'll go at 2 minutes past. Jean and Trace, if people need to be admitted, just do that if you don't mind. I should have set it up that they can come in automatically.
Do you mind if I introduce you? Is that a problem?
No, please, let's get going.
Okay, cool. All right, let's kick this thing off. We'll admit as we go. My name is Jean Barnard. Welcome to our second webinar in the Sales Institute Alumni Series. Thank you so much for joining us. I'd like to remind everybody that we're intending to do this at least once a month for the next 10 months, or for 10 months of the year. We're not going to be doing it in December and January. One of the key things, of course, is that, yes, it's alumni, so everybody that's ever been on a course with us ever is more than welcome to attend, and often is being invited by us. But you are welcome to advance this invite to colleagues and friends who you think will benefit from joining us at the alumni, joining us in our webinars. Please feel free to suggest topics for us. We don't want to pretend that we know everything and know all the queries and questions that you have, or the things that drive you nuts, or the things that are challenging you. So we look forward to hearing from you on topics that you find of interest or that you would like us to talk about. We'd also like to know from you what day and what time of the day works best for you. We've scheduled the first one mid-afternoon. The second one on purpose, we scheduled for late in the afternoon. Obviously, we'll be looking at the numbers that come in and the numbers that register. But if you have a specific opinion, we'd love to hear about it. Today, we're talking about the decision equation, or how to overcome customer indecision. It's being led by Tim, who's our CEO. We are recording the session, so for any of your friends or colleagues that would like to, or could not be with us today, would like to see the recording or would like to view the recording, please feel free to let us know. Comments and questions are welcome. Tracy and I will be in the background watching the chat line. So your comments and questions will be welcomed and will be dealt with during the course of the presentation by Tim. And with that, I'd like to introduce Tim to you. And the way I'd like to do that is by sharing with you his official CD. We call him the Professor because of his passion for effective learning. Now, Tim founded the Sales Institute in around 2000, year 2000. So we've been going for about 24 years, right? And he's worked with sales teams and their leadership to increase performance for these 24 years. He is qualified as a teacher. He joined Siltec as a Microsoft product manager, and he was contracted by Microsoft to deliver sales and licensing training. He's been doing that, and he's still doing that today. He started the Sales Institute that same year. He specializes in providing training and coaching to salespeople and their managers in complex sales. And this he does to larger organizations and business markets. He's delivered training to organizations around the world, including Microsoft, Oracle, Citrix, Boston City Campus, Saint-Gobain, Broadreach, Pioneer Foods, Oracle, Dimension Data, and others. And with that, I'm going to hand over to Tim, and I hope you will enjoy the talk.
Listen, before I get going, I know there are a couple of First Tech friends on here, so apologies for mentioning Dimension Data there. You guys are definitely on my list, so apologies to the First Tech people. Yeah, it's lovely to see all these names and people that we've trained over the years and people we've built relationships with. So welcome to my favorite topic in the world, which is overcoming customer indecision. Some of you might have been exposed to this recently, but this is brand new off the press. The research I'm about to show you only got released around about November last year, and it answers a very important question. Why is it that customers have become so incredibly indecisive, and what do you do about it? So I'm sure you've experienced some of these things where, you know, customers, and we believe that part of it's been COVID, is that we thought they were indecisive before, it's got even worse. So I've got some good news for you. I'm going to show you today why it's happening, what you can do about it, and then I'm going to give you a brilliant, brilliant tool that we use all the time now for how we understand our customers, as well as how we qualify and how we can reduce or how we can increase sales, increase the close. So please, if you need anything from me, you want to talk about this topic, you need any of the tools, my email is timk@salesinstitute.co.za. So welcome, really good to have you here. So has this happened to you? And I'm sure if you're in sales, if you say no, you're lying. So I'm sure this has happened to you recently. Emails go unanswered. You send an email, how you doing? Have you made a decision yet? We had this great meeting last week. You know, have you got a feedback for me? And then just chirp, 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 nothing. The second thing I'm sure you've experienced is they don't answer your calls. So they're incredibly excited at some point. You know, they look like they've been hooked. They're ready to buy. Then you try and get hold of them. They just refuse to answer the telephone. The third one, and I'm sure this has happened to you because it happens to us all the time, is you give the solution. The customer at the time seems incredibly excited, and then they come back to you and they say, we'd love to do this, but we need to push it into the next financial year, or won't you phone me in 3 months' time? You know, and then they keep pushing this thing out. The one that I always love as a sales coach and trainer is that often, and you'll see why now, often our customers will say, we need to put some stuff in place before we talk to you. And I'll show you later on why this is happening, where these solutions, even though we know that they're important, need to be done. For some reason, customers are pushing them out. So again, I'm sure you can give me a thumbs up if you agree with any of these. The other one is not even that they push it out, but when you're at the meeting or when you do the proposal, incredibly excited. I'm sitting with a situation with exactly that, where the deal was even agreed to and signed. And now I'm battling to get hold of the person. And either something's happened, or sometimes people at the time are excited, and then as time goes on, they lose interest. So that happens quite regularly. And then the last one is, you've got the best solution. You're doing really, really well, and what you've got is what they need. And for some reason, they go with what they know, or they go with somebody else who is totally the wrong solution. The other one, when I trade people who are in services, they often get terribly excited when the customers express a frustration with their current provider. And they say, I hate my current provider, the service is terrible, and we want to switch. And then the salesperson gets terribly excited, and then they never switch. So if you don't mind, just give me a thumbs up if you experience any of this. Give me it's the equivalent of a hell yeah. You're able to do reactions, aren't you? There we go, Louis. And Gabrielle, thank you. Yeah. So it's happening to all of you too. I'm really glad to see that. So the question comes up, why is this happening? And has it got worse? So, a lot of the time we sit with situations where the customer is indecisive. We're battling to get them to do this. What we find is from COVID, this has actually got even worse, where they have become even more indecisive. So what we've had the shock of COVID. We've had the economic challenges of that. So people have definitely become more indecisive over the last 4 years or so. So how do we make these changes, and what's causing it? So I want to answer 2 questions today. What causes this terrible indecision, and what can we do about it? So here's the good news. It's a perfectly natural phenomenon. So if you understand what's causing the indecision, you can then do something about it by understanding what it is that's counteracting. So the other part that's good news here is that it's done at a deeply primal level. People don't wake up and suddenly feel anxious. But if you know that there's a certain level of anxiety, you can counteract that in the training. Sorry, I'm a trainer. You can counteract it when you propose a solution. Apologies. So what can you do about it? What's causing it? Now, here's the simple answer. You might have understood your customer needs 100%. And I get this a lot. I've been to the customer. We call it unpacking. We've understood the requirement. We've confirmed it with the customer, and they're very excited about it. What you're not taking into account, and the secret sauce here, is that they're actually opposing forces. So on the one hand, you've got yes, there's a need. So they've understood the requirement. They know they must do something about it. They know that the IT is falling apart, or they need your services, and they know that you deliver a great solution. So the forces that are for the sale are quite strong. So we get terribly excited. We say, done deal. These guys are going to sell at the end of the month, and we forecast it. Here's the problem. There are opposing forces. So for every time, to quote Newton, is that for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So as much as there are forces for, there are forces against. Now, what are those forces against? And sadly, these forces are incredibly powerful. So the first one is what we call status quo, or people just want to stick with what they know. So people will, even if they're miserable, they will stay in that unhappy relationship, that unhappy environment, even though they know it's not working for them, because it's easier to stick with what I know than to take a risk and do something different. So when you are providing a solution, there are a whole lot of things that are holding them back. And one of them might be price. One of them might be they're not seeing the value, or they don't see the urgency. So there are a lot of reasons why people will oppose the decision. Now, here's the issue. If you look at those two forces, which is number one, status quo, number two is anxiety. They're worried about stuff. So they're worried about whether you'll deliver on time, whether what you're promising you'll actually give them, whether you'll get the returns you're promising. So there are a whole lot of concerns they have, what we call anxieties, that are also at play. So now what you've got, the forces for, which is the understanding the need and understanding your value, those are pushing towards the sale. And then the opposite would be a person sticking with what they know and their concerns. And the bad news is the forces against are almost double the intensity of the forces for. So in other words, for you to overcome the inertia and the anxiety is almost double what is required, to get them to understand the push and pull, or to understand the forces for. So this has been proved, and I'll give you an example later on, is that the human brain is totally focused on what could go wrong. And because it's so focused on what could go wrong, often what you find is that overwhelms the reason to act. And that's what causes a customer to be incredibly excited 1 minute and then back off the second. Now, here's the bad news. According to the research this is based on, which is a brilliant book called The Jolt Effect, which I'll reference later on, the research says that about 44% of your lost deals are due to no decision at all. How's that for a number? Nearly half the deals you don't win are people who actually couldn't make a decision. So you are not even losing to competitors, you're losing to somebody called No Decision Incorporated. So let's talk about what this means and what you can do about it. So here's the issue. When you are dealing with your customers, according to the research done by in the book, The Jolt Effect, it's a guy called Matthew Dickinson, I hope. Dickinson. Now, when we teach you, and you've been on our courses, you'll know about the Challenger sale, because that's what we spend a lot of time on. And this is the next layer of that research. So Challenger sale said that top performers teach Taylor take control. The next level of research says that you need to reduce indecision. Now, let me just tell you about this research quickly. When the COVID arrived, as you know, we moved a lot of our meetings to online. So people were suddenly having, meetings on Teams and one of the other tools. So what we suddenly got was in an enormous amount of resource or research material. So what this company did is they took all of these meetings, they plugged it into an AI engine, and they had a look at where did the meetings go wrong. So all of a sudden, when they're doing this research, they don't now have to go and sit with you in the meeting. They can take the meetings, they can take, and you'll be shocked at the number, and they can then figure out at what point do we see that the customer starts losing interest, or the language that they're using, or the questions that they ask. What are the patterns? Now, here's the number. Take a drum roll here, deep breath. 2 million analyses. They took 2 million meetings, sales meetings, and plugged it into the system. And what they came out with is that customers have become indecisive. They then said, of the 44% of no decision, what's causing the problem are two things. The one is inertia, which makes up 44% of no decision. Inertia being, I'm sticking with what I know. And then this is the shocking statistic, and this is the thing you've got to take into account. A huge amount of it, 56%, came down to an anxiety, an unreasonable anxiety, fear, this overwhelming desire not to do anything. So what happens is I've got to get people to understand we must do something here, which is inertia. I've got to compel them to go overcome the status quo. The issue is that they then become incredibly anxious. So we used to call it buyer's remorse. I'm sure you can relate to this, where right near the decision, they suddenly become terribly worried about stuff. And they ask you for all sorts of guarantees. Now, this is the part that became really intriguing to me and taught me something about how I was doing things. What they said was, if you look at a typical sale, the overcoming inertia needs to happen early in the sale. You have to, right up front, from when you first talk to them, when you start doing your proposal, you need to be overcoming and giving them a reason to make a decision to act. You need to do that really, really early. And then roughly 60% in to the deal, you need to start ratcheting down the overcoming status quo and start reducing anxiety. Now, let me explain why this is so important. If you think about this a couple of years ago, if customers weren't responding to us, what did we do? And the answer is we would start by sending them mails about how important it was to do something about this and how they must fix this thing. And did they know that if they don't fix this, they're going to lose so much money? So what we're doing is the more we are ratcheting up the pressure in a desperate attempt to get them to respond to us or agree to the sale, the more we're actually pushing the anxiety. We're making them more and more anxious. So I want to give you an example in my world. A couple of years ago, this guy phoned me and he offered me some marketing at an event. So it was access to some online platform and a sponsor of an event. I said to him, sounds interesting. Will you send me detail? That's all I did. Somehow I ended up on his pipeline. So he must have put me down as 60 to 80%, because from that point on, every second or third day, this guy would phone me, email me, have I made a decision? And the more I said to him, look, I told you, I will tell you in 3 weeks, 4 weeks time. No, my manager said, if you decide now, we can give you a 10% discount. And I said to him, remember, I told you I will tell you 1st of July. That hasn't changed. Don't phone me again. Wednesday phones me again. Until eventually I said, you know that your nagging has cost you this deal. Now, this is what happens. We get our sales managers start pushing us to follow up. And the follow up is just, have you made a decision yet? Now, the problem there is if you're not adding value and you are not reducing that anxiety, you're actually increasing it. So the more, and I'm not saying you shouldn't follow up, please hear me. I'm saying you should follow up creatively and keep adding value and reducing anxiety rather than ratcheting up the pressure. Because if anxiety is 56%, we're actually, by increasing trying to beat the status quo, we're actually increasing anxiety. Now, this was such an insight for me because I realized I was doing too much of this trying to beat the status quo. Now, later on, I'll show you how you reduce anxiety. But the big thing is you've got to make it easy to buy. You've got to reduce the risk. You've got to introduce guarantees, business cases, customer references. This is when you get them to feel comfortable with the deal. You've done it before. You've been successful. If, this is how we mitigate risk. You need to figure out how to reduce anxiety. So just give me a reaction to that. Hopefully that's also been insightful to you, that initially overcome status quo, and then we need to start reducing the anxiety levels. Good. Nice feedback here. As we say in training circles, good energy in the room. All right, so that's the theory. Let's get down to some practical work. So why is it that our customers are doing this? And here's the good news. They don't even know they're doing it. They're actually victims of their own psychology. Now, let me explain what this means. You are designed to stay safe. Your brain's main function is to stop you from dying. That's why you don't normally, unless you can push yourself to do it, you don't normally jump off buildings or jump out of airplanes or do extremely risky things, because your brain has got this little amygdala. For those who've been on my training, you'll know I call it the bullshit detector. There's this little bullshit detector in the back of your head, which is the first thing when you meet someone or you're exposed to any situation. The first thing that happens is the impulse hits the amygdala, and it looks at, am I safe, fight or flight? Do I run? Do I stand perfectly still, or do I smack you? Now that fight or flight is such a powerful thing. It's motivating us the whole time. Am I safe? Am I making the right decision? Are you going to take advantage of me? Now, let me show you how this works. So the first bias, which is a totally below the conscious level, the first bias that happens is called status quo. And it's this desperate desire for things to stay as they are. And once people have decided to do something, they will often stick to that decision. So what will happen is, once they say no to you once, it becomes very difficult to move them back. Once they've made a specific decision, no matter what you do, it becomes really difficult, because now they have to change their minds. So psychologically, and this is a conversation for another day, you have to get them to change their minds without them knowing they're doing it. You've got to be very subtle in your choice of language, because what happens here is they will stick with what they know. So even if they're unhappy with the situation, they'll still stick to status quo. So what they'll do is they'll tell you, we've got a current provider, perfectly happy. And then again, we try, but have you tried this? And again, we're ratcheting up the anxiety. Whereas we need to use techniques that give them a reason to shift. So asking questions like, are you also looking to? Have you experienced this? Is this a priority for you? So to try and move the conversation to why they need to shift. So that's status quo bias. Unless you give them a compelling reason to act, bad news, they're going to stick with what they know, which is good news for you if you're the incumbent. So if you're the current provider, it's great. If you aren't, you're in trouble. The other one is customers just believe that it's too difficult to make the shift. So if there's too much that you put in the way, there's just too many documents to fill out, it's too much of a complicated process, they're going to say, no, I'm going to stick with what I know. So if you put too many processes in the way, you make it too difficult, that's going to stick with what they've got. So people have this overwhelming desire to stay with what they know and be safe. The second one is the one that intrigues me, and this is what they emphasize in the jolt effect. What they say here is something called the omission bias, and I'd like to say it in the language that I use, is people would rather say that they wish they had done it and not do it than do it and feel like they screwed up. So in other words, what the omission bias says is we are far more focused on loss than we are on reward. We are so much more focused on what we don't want than what we do want. Now, if I said to you, what do you like about yourself? I'll guarantee you'll give me 10, you'll struggle to what I like about myself. You'll struggle to give me 5 things. If I said to you, what don't you like about yourself? You can give me a list. If I said to you, what do you want? You'll struggle to tell me that. If I tell you what don't you want, you can say, where must I start? So the human brain, to keep you alive and to keep you safe and to keep you from humiliating yourself and being rejected by others, which is omission bias. It's all about a fear of rejection, believe it or not. We need to be part of a group of people, and we won't do anything typically that'll move us out of that little tribe. That's what they call it. So the omission bias is customers would rather say, I wish I had done this. I had this idea first. I wish we had adapted or adopted this technology. And they're actually lying. So there's a little bit of regret, but actually they're quite comfortable with that. What they don't want is to be the person who committed to the SAP implementation or this big rollout or change of supplier and it goes wrong, and they the person who now has to carry that. So these two biases are incredibly powerful. You have trying to stay safe and trying not to be perceived as somebody who's made a mistake. So what I want to show you is if you can't overcome these two biases, you're going to end up with buyer indecision. You're going to end up with no decision. Okay, so I keep telling you we're going to get to the tools that we offered you. So this is how you can overcome this. So now that I've given you the research, what the Jolt effect says is that there are three main causes of customer indecision. And what those three main causes are, number one, they don't have enough information to make the decision. So I worked with a client a good couple of years ago. He managed to do a quote for a 2.5 million rand implementation on an Excel spreadsheet. And I said to him, what are the chances of you getting this deal when all you're sending them is one quote with no detail? It was literally the part numbers and the price. Now, if clients, you know what I mean? If they feel like they don't have enough information, they will give you, they'll ask you more questions. So the minute they start saying, can I see what it looks like? Have you done this before? Do you have customer references? Can I meet the person who's going to implement this? Do you have business case for me? Can you prove that you've delivered the value you're promising? So I'm going to ask you later on to give me some ideas on what kind of information we could be providing. But in the research, this is one of the big things, is we're not giving enough. So in our proposals, in the supporting documentation, we need to be giving good information that is customized and personalized to that role. So finance people need certain resources, IT, COO, whoever, the person managing the factory, the office manager, whoever you're talking to. We need to be able to give them resources where they can do their own research. And we found this the minute we upped our game when it came to our overviews and the research that we're doing and events like this, suddenly we were closing more sales. So we realized we need to give more. Can we explain what's in the course? Can we give you examples? And we found that started increasing sales. So that's the first one. Are you giving customers enough information? Because if you don't give them information, guess what? They're going to Google you. According to Gartner, people throughout the sales cycle will continue to research you. And now with AI, things like ChatGPT, it's even more easy. So whatever you tell them and whatever you're offering them, even in the middle of the sales cycle, they're checking out that you're making sense. So if you're not giving them the information, they're going to go find it somewhere else. They're going to speak to their friends. They're going to speak to colleagues, people in the industry. They're going to go and Google. They're going to find resources. So you want to own that. The second one is they don't know how to value the different options. So because they become so indecisive, because they become so fearful, one of the things they want you to help them do is please help me make this decision. Give me tools like business cases or pros and cons or reference stories or anything that allows me to evaluate whether this is the right decision. So they struggle to value the option. Am I going to get the return that you're promising? And the other thing is they struggle when things look similar. Because here's the danger. We're all creating brilliant websites nowadays because there's so many good tools. So we all look the same. I remember doing this once a couple of years ago to one of the IT companies I work with. I took 5 different companies and I copied and pasted their copy, and I put it in a Word document. I said, which one's your company? And I showed them 5 different companies. Out of 10 people, 2 got it right. So everybody starts sounding the same. The solution starts sounding the same. So now your customer's looking and say, I have no idea what to do. And when I have no idea what I do, I put my hands on my head and I say, I'm going to do nothing. I just panic. And the human brain panics very, very quickly. It's a real curse. The more information we're giving people, the more they panic. So the tools you give them to evaluate your solution has to be incredibly profound. And then lastly, they're not convinced you're going to give them the outcomes they're looking for. So what we're saying here is, how do you guarantee the outcome? Now, this is a very difficult one to figure out, because in typical internet terms, all you're saying is that I can give you a guarantee. So the other day I took the wrong product. It was a Microsoft product. And I realized within 2 days, oops, I've taken the wrong version. All I did was cancel it, and I knew Microsoft would credit me. It was guaranteed. So that made me okay with making that decision. Now, if you look at the opposite of that, I've been working with a product that Microsoft's now got called Copilot. Now, that's not a cheap product. And that product is quite a big commitment for a year. And you're given 7 days to return it. So there, because the outcome wasn't what as easy, I hesitated a lot more. So the easier you can communicate the outcome, the less you can you can make that risk, the more guarantees you can offer, the better it is for you. So a simple thing that we do, as you know, is 50% deposit payable, pay the rest once the training's done. That then reduces some of that risk. So you're going to have to figure out, how can we give them the right information that helps them make the decision? How do we help them evaluate the solution that makes it easier for them to evaluate the solution? And then the third one, how do we make it easier for them to achieve their outcomes? And how do we reduce the risk? All right, so let me give you some advice on how to do that. Then I'm going to show you the equation. So what you want to do, number one, is lack of information. You've got to spend more time diagnosing. You've got to ask the right questions. In pro selling, we spend a lot of time on this. What questions should you be asking? How do you understand their requirements? How do you confirm it? How do you let them evaluate the solution? So you need to understand how they make decisions, give them a lot of resources that, again, are customized. Valuation problems, present the solution in a compelling way, give them a business case if you can. So figure out how you can help them evaluate it. The third one is outcome uncertainty. Please look at your proposals. This to me is a big issue, is when I see 50-page proposals, all terms and conditions, and how wonderful my company is, that's not going to reduce outcome uncertainty. So you need to look at your proposals. Give them a quality proposal. Show them that you've done this before. It's a big one. So show them where you've helped other customers, what those results were. Give them access to those customers. Let them go and see. And then the big one I'm going to talk to you about now is reduce anxiety. So this is how you can reduce indecision. Now, before I move on to the actual equation that'll help you do this, I just want to pause for a second. I haven't seen a lot of questions coming through. Are there any specific questions you have at this point? Or is everything okay to you and you're terribly excited about this content? And I have challenged you to do something about this. Good. Thanks, Monique. All good. No questions so far. Am I that good? Oh, Louis even gave me a hand clap there. Love it. I will bow at the end, Louis. Excellent. So drum roll, please. If you thought that was good, now we're going to introduce you to how you can understand the elements. Because if you don't map this out, you are going to miss out on things. And I want to show you how you can understand both sides of this equation. How do you understand the push and the forces for? How do you understand the forces against? And then we, because we are generous, are going to send you the spreadsheet we use. So you will be able to do your own decision equation. And that's not all. Because you attended today, we'll even coach you on how it works. That's how nice we are. So I hope I sounded like a salesperson there. So this is what we call the decision equation. So the decision equation is a spreadsheet that has a look at the forces for and the forces against. So thanks, Brendan. So that's creative use of the emojis. So the decision equation looks at what is pushing the deal. So in other words, is there a reason to act? Are you sitting with happy ears? So that's typical salespeople. They have happy ears. They reckon it's a done deal. Meanwhile, they haven't really listened. So the push factors are what is driving the decision. Is there a compelling reason to act? Is there a trigger event? Is there a deadline? Can you identify something that is going wrong because they haven't solved this problem? Have they told you they need to fix this thing now? So the push factors is anything that drives the decision. Now, here's the good news. You can have push factors regardless of the solution. So you don't have to worry about pricing and things yet. You only need to make sure that you understand what's driving the deal. And please don't suffer from premature proposal. We're too keen to give proposals way too early. You need to take this slowly. Please, I hope no one gets offended, but it's like foreplay. You got to take it slow. We go way too quickly with these things. So it's about understanding their needs and make sure that you are moving towards the solution. So you need to understand the drivers. The second one, so now you understand the drivers. The second one is what is pulling you, or what's pulling the solution. Do they like what you offer? So can you offer this? So what is the value you're offering them? If they look at your company, do they think this is the best company to help me? Again, don't worry about price yet. So if money was no object, have you given them the best possible solution? So the push factors are what is driving the solution, and the pull factors are how attractive is the product or service to them. Now, again, please, this sounds very easy, but here's the trick. It cannot go onto the spreadsheet until you've confirmed this with the customer. So the customer has to nod their head and tell you this is the reason for why we want to act, and they've got to tell you why they like the solution. Until they've actually confirmed this with you, you need to be very careful about how you've qualified the deal. So the way we do this is when we first interact with customers, we will try and fill this out ourselves. So we'll think about what's pushing this deal, what's pulling the deal. We will make based on our research, we will try and populate the spreadsheet. Then we will confirm it in our conversations with that customer. So we will look at what's pushing, what's pulling, what are the forces for progress, what do we think they should be, and then we validate that, and we ask a whole lot of questions until we're comfortable with what's going towards the deal. Then, and this is the trick, that's not enough to close this deal. You need to understand what is pushing against the deal. What is the inertia? What's holding them back? Where haven't you convinced them? Where are they sticking with what they know? And where are they stuck in habits? And what are you going to do to reduce the inertia? Then the last part is they worried about stuff. And listen to my word. They're anxious. They're worried. Now, this is incredibly difficult to figure out. What are they physically worried about? So they are going to the anxiety elements are going to be, can you prove that you can do this? Have you done this before? Can I trust you? You know, are there hidden costs? You know, are you as good as you say you are? So there are all sorts of inertia elements, which would be things like we're comfortable with what we've got, you seem a bit expensive, we don't see the value. Then there are anxiety elements, which are, I'm worried about a couple of things that you haven't told me yet. Now, I want to show you an example of this, which we use in our training, but then I want to work through quickly in a couple of minutes. I want to show you how the spreadsheet works. So this is a typical example, and we always use this one around deciding to buy a car. And I'll tell you why, is I was in this situation. So a year or two ago, I needed to buy a new car. So that doesn't look like me, but that's me with the hair. So if you look at what was driving the decision, so if you look at the push factors, what happened was during COVID, I never left my house. And most of my deals and things were happening in, inside or virtual meetings. So I didn't really need a car, and my son did. So I said, great, I'm going to give Matthew my car. So I gave him, I know it sounds impressive, but it's a Renault Kwid, so it's not as impressive as it sounds. But I gave Matthew my car. Then all of a sudden, people started saying, can you come see me? And my wife started moaning because I was having to drop her off. And I was getting sick and tired of Ubering. Apparently, I pronounce Uber wrong, according to my children. So what we're looking at here is what is driving this. So in this case, I had different ones, which was I now need to travel. I need to get to customers. My wife's moaning. I need something reliable. And I started looking at what's driving the push factor. So in this case, car's old, no boot space, the indicator doesn't work, it keeps breaking down, and no one wants to drive with me because the car's so bad. So you can see there's an enormous push factor. The pull factor is I bought a Nissan Juke. What I liked about it, it was in really good condition. It was a great price. It came with a 2-year extended warranty. It was, a very easy to service car. I know it had a very reliable engine. I liked the size of the motor because, driving a Kwid's like riding a bicycle. That's how slowly this thing goes. And you push the pedal so hard, it feels like, when you get to where you're going, you're exhausted. So I wanted something with a bit more power. I wanted a 1600, and I wanted something a bit bigger. I wanted a tow bar because I do cycle every now and then. So I had all of the things I liked about it. Now, you would think if you look at push and pull, I would buy it. No, and here's the problem. Because as much as I know I need a car, as much as I like the Nissan Juke, just because I'm weird that way, I know it's a strange shape, but what drove against it was the inertia. So the first thing was you're moving from a 900cc to a 1600. So with me, you fill up even with today's petrol prices, you fill up the Kwid with $400. So it's a wonderful thing. It only goes about 350 Ks, but that's fine. So it's a lot more fuel efficient than my car. I wasn't having to pay car repayments. It was easy. My Kwid was an automatic. I loved that car, and it was a nice color. It wasn't red, but, I'm not a big fan of white cars. And my Juke is white. Now, those things were the things that pushed me against it. I thought, do I really have to go and do car repayments again? Now my insurance is going to kick up again. I've just paid off the bloody Kwid. Now I'm going to buy another car. So those were all inertia elements. Now, this makes it a very difficult thing, is understanding the difference in inertia and anxiety. What anxiety does is what was I worried about? Now, there's a difference between I don't want to pay car repayments versus can I afford those car repayments? So the anxiety was, look, all of a sudden it's another 5,000 Rand that I hadn't catered for. That's an anxiety. The car, the size of it, it's not a 4x4, but it's bigger to park. If you know the Kwid, it's so easy to park. The insurance kicks up because now my son is young, so his insurance will kick up, so will mine. I really don't like white. I don't know what's wrong with me. And I wasn't convinced about this motor plan because I thought, well, you know, the car's done quite a bit of mileage. What happens? Will it break down? Now, I want to show you this. So there was a reason for the car, 100%, 9 out of 10. I loved the Duke. Here's the problem. You can't get much further than 18 out of 20, which means my reason to buy and the value of the solution is pretty much done. Now, this is the issue, what I was saying about stop continuing to push the same problem. Because if you're going to keep saying, yes, but you must solve this, this is how wonderful the product is, at some point you reach saturation point where you are just pushing it too hard and it becomes irritating because you can only push and pull for a certain amount of time. You can talk about the need, you can talk about the solution to a certain point. Then you need to start reducing the inertia and anxiety. Because here's the bad news. If you look at this difference, 18 is playing 15. So the push is 9, the pull is 9. So you would think it's a done deal. If you look at the right-hand side, the inertia is high. And so is the anxiety. So 18 is now playing 15. So if you look at this, that means that am I doing enough to get the deal? The answer is hell no. So the salesperson who's working with me needs to know the inertia elements and needs to know the anxiety elements. They need to ask me. And based on what they've asked me, they need to reduce the inertia and anxiety. So what they've got to do now is they've got to say, Tim, let's talk fuel efficiency. So if you have a look at this, think about how you would reduce my inertia. You know, you need to look at how you deal with my car payments. You need to let me take a test drive. You need to talk to me about the fuel efficiency. To reduce my anxiety, you need to talk to me about how I could afford the payments. You need to help me with a good deal on insurance. You need to help me with the parking. You need to tell me why it needs to stay white. Because if you can start reducing the right-hand side, suddenly the reason to buy overwhelms the reason not to. Now, this looks a lot easier than it is. Trying to figure out push and pull versus inertia and anxiety. The people who have done this exercise, and some of you, attending today, they'll tell you that once you have to start doing this for real, it's not quite as easy. Specifically trying to figure out what are the real drivers behind the buying decision. What do they really like about our solution? Not what we think they should like, but what do they really like about it? Well, how do we reduce, what are the things that are holding them back? And what are their anxiety elements? And identifying inertia and anxiety is tough. Trying to figure out the stuff that they need to sort out and the stuff that they're worried about. Those are incredibly difficult. So I just want to stress this. If you've been on the training and you're comfortable with it, that's fine. But if you would like to work through one of these, and then you would like us to give you feedback, we'll gladly do that. Because this is not the easiest thing in the world. And I'm telling you, it's earth-shatteringly good. For those of you in the room who are sales managers, the people who work with me will tell you this. If they have a deal, I make them fill this out. So I will say, what's driving the deal? What do they like about what we offer? Did you pick up any inertia elements? Did you pick up any anxiety elements? So when we qualify opportunities, this is our qualification tool. And we know this language. So as a manager, I know this has been covered. And I know the right questions are being asked. And what often happens is in our meetings, we get through this really quickly because we go through these 4 elements quickly. And then I test for it. Have you really understood the inertia? Because a lot of people only do push and pull. They only understand the driver and their solution. They haven't asked the tough questions on when will you make the decision? How do you feel about this? Which of the elements do you see as valuable? Do you have any concerns about what we're talking about here? So if you can expose inertia and anxiety, the way you use this tool, both as a sales manager, as a salesperson, is list the push factors, list the pull factors, then go and work on inertia and anxiety. And if there are any gaps, go and ask the questions and update your decision equation. So a decision equation like this, you definitely don't do it once. You will do it throughout the sales cycle. And even from a cross-selling, you'll do it again. So when you get used to the spreadsheet, you will do this regularly, you'll do it faster, and you really will thank us, because the tool just exposes things that we take for granted. And remember what I said to you, 44% of the deals you're losing is a result of inertia and anxiety. Are we considering these elements? Now, in a few minutes, I just want to show you how this works, but I just want to finish off this presentation, and then I'll show you the spreadsheet and how it works. So this is the equation. Don't worry about the out of 10. I'll show you how the spreadsheet solves this problem. Right, so this is what the spreadsheet looks like, and I'm going to explain it to you in a couple of seconds. But it's exactly the same thing. The difference is it's scored out of 3. So every element is low, medium, or high. So what you would do is you look here, it's exactly the same thing. It's an old model. It's low, so it's only 1. The boot space is important. That's a 2. The can't travel is flipping high, so it's a 3, which is, it's very, very high. So that then gives me a score here of 9. This is out of 15 now, because it's 5 elements times 3. If you look at the pull, again, we end up with 9. So now we've got 18. The inertia elements, same thing I showed you. That's now come to 8. And the anxieties come to 7. And all I've done, and because we are just that good at Excel, we've even made it easy where you choose from a list and it calculates automatically. So the idea would be you identify the elements, and then you would choose high, medium, or low. That then will automatically tell you if this is a good idea or not, and whether you should be chasing this opportunity. And if you look here, if you look at this number, hell no, this isn't a good decision. It's only 3. So either I say not qualified, or I need to reduce the inertia and anxiety. I can improve push and pull, but I need to reduce inertia and anxiety, because if I can solve the car repayments problem, I've kicked off 3, suddenly the difference is 6. And now we're talking. If I can show you how the car payments can be affordable, I've now reduced it by 5. Suddenly we're sitting at 8. So the more you can reduce inertia and anxiety, the better it is. And I'm going to say this one more time, because I see this in our coaching, is that people are not spending enough time on this inertia and anxiety element. Even where they've done the training, or even in our case, excuse me, where we do this for a living, we still don't spend enough time on inertia and anxiety. And the reason is it's a tough question. It's not an easy question to ask. So that's the decision for and against. Now, what we work on is out of 30, try and aim for a difference of 10. So if 25 is playing 15, then you know you've got a good deal. Anything below 10, you're taking a risk. You haven't asked enough of the questions. Now, what's wonderful about this tool is that it'll identify the questions you haven't asked, because we have templates on what we should know. So, for example, in the push and pull, we have elements that will be 1, 2, and 3. For inertia and anxiety, we have the same thing, because we've done this for a while. We know typically what people are worried about. And then we try and build tools that'll reduce inertia and anxiety. So inertia is all about giving them a compelling reason to act. You do that till about 60% of the deal. Then you start bringing down the anxiety through the guarantees, the reference stories, the answering the objections properly. So again, please give me feedback on this. I'll show you the spreadsheet now, but does it make sense in terms of the concept? I'm not seeing a lot of questions, so I'm assuming everybody is understanding. All right, so I'm getting lots of thumbs up. All good. All right, so before I show it to you very quickly, and as I said, thank you, Brendan. Tracy will send this spreadsheet to you with the recording. The next steps that we're offering you is, if you look at this decision equation, even if you've been on training with us before, or you're very new to this, you think, man, this looks really interesting, but I have no clue what he's talking about. I'd like you to have a chance to try out this decision equation. By the way, this tool we're about to give you, we use in our management as well. So every decision we make, we use the same tool. It's a really powerful management tool as well. So the logic here would be, work through a decision equation, then send it to us, and then book a session with any one of us, whoever's available or you're comfortable with. Book a session, we'll work through the decision equation with you, and we will give you some feedback on how you can improve it. Please, this is not a sales tool in any way. We believe so strongly about this tool that's why we're giving it to alumni, because we've only started training this since the beginning of the year. So the people before this year wouldn't have been exposed to the decision equation. And even if you have, please keep doing it. Please getting feedback from us. We do decisions equations all the time. I've been doing it for at least 6 months now, and I still sometimes struggle with what to put where, and I'm not asking the right questions. So please, this is something you got to develop the ability on this thing. It looks very, very simple on the surface. When you start diving down into it, it becomes a lot more complex. All right, so this is the offer. The offer is, please, we're just going to ask you to contact us. When you've got our details, is book a coaching session. But you know how we work? Coaching equals you've done the work, we're going to give you feedback. Consulting is we do the work, you pay us for that. So this is coaching. You do the work, you build your equation, and then we will give you feedback on it. And all of us, inside of the SI team, anybody who does training, we all know this really well. Now, just as a final thing, for those who aren't used to how we do things, if you want to talk about our programs, these are some of the courses that we run. They are always role specific. So just very quickly, this is not a marketing activity doing these sessions, but inside selling is for people who are who are selling via the telephone and internet, emails and things. Pro selling is our flagship course. That is for someone who wants the entire process, from prospecting all the way to close. The new business development, if your job is to get appointments. Consultative selling, if you're pre-sales. So you're looking at high ticket items, complex sales, or technical sales. Account management, you're a rep who who your accounts are. You are needing to grow those accounts. Key account, you've got 3, 4, 5 accounts, really big ones you've got to develop. And sales management, you are the boss. So those, again, if you need any information, you can call us. Right, now I just want to take 5 minutes just to quickly show you the spreadsheet. So hopefully you can see my screen. Can you just confirm you can see it? Okay. So the way this works, thanks, Trace, is these are the push factors. Now, I don't want to, because just for the sake of time, plus I'd like you to do this as part of the coaching. We try and get to 5 factors. It doesn't matter if you get 5 in push and pull and you honestly can only think of 4, or you can only identify 4 in inertia. So you don't have to use 5. So it's not forced on you that you have to go with 5 items. But how this works, and I just want to show you how it works, is number 1, at the top here, you will type in the decision you need to make. So for example, will Mariska buy sales training from us? All right, Mariska, your name was in front of me. So if I do that, I now need to understand, have I done the work? So that would be the decision. Have I, have I convinced this person that they need to come on the course? So in the push factor, I will then have a look at what are the push factors. So number one, they've told me they need to do training. So that would be, they've expressed the need. That would be high. Now watch the maths. I hope you're impressed with this because Tracy did this. You'll see I get to choose between high, medium, or low. So whichever one I choose, it will, on the drop-down list, it'll then score for you. No, I didn't score. Tracy, what'd you do? Sorry, I need to. So normally that 2 rocks up. I'll have to check that formula. But whatever you choose here, it'll calculate here. So here it's a medium, there it's a medium. Let's say this becomes a high. I think I broke something between when you sent it to me and now. So now that becomes 10. So let's say the push factor here, number one, they've committed to the training. Number two, it's got to be done. Yeah, it was me. Sorry, Trace. Number two, it's got to be done by the end of February because they have to do it in financial year. Number three, they are struggling to get new business and they've expressed that as a concern. So I would then say, okay, 5 elements. I would choose between medium, low, medium, high. It'll calculate the push factors. Then I will say, what are the pull factors? What do they like about our solution? So they really like the fact that it's a longer term program and it can be delivered over 6 weeks. They like the fact that I don't have to be out of the office and that they can do the homework. They believe that we have the necessary experience. They feel like we understand their environment. So whatever those push factors are, I would then score. So now I've got 22. So 22 out of 30. So I would identify then, okay, this pull factor here is only a 1. Maybe I need to do a bit more work on that. So now I do push and pull sorted. It's calculated to 22. Now I type in the inertia factors. What are the things holding them back? Well, they don't really know us. They've used another provider up until now. They're not. I have this quite regularly. They're not convinced their salespeople will have the necessary discipline, to do the online. They're a little worried, not worried, but they generally prefer to do this face to face. So I would then list the 5. But again, these are conversations I have with my customer. So I don't make this stuff up. I ask my customer, my client, about, how do you feel about this approach? Is this something you'd like to see? So that would then allow me to overcome inertia. That then gets me to 8. All right. And then anxiety. This is the toughest one. What are they worried about? Now, there's some really weird ones with us. So the one is, will the facilitator ask me questions I can't answer? Will I look dumb? Will I spend all this money with the sales institute and I don't get the returns I'm looking for because we've been burnt before? Will I know more than the facilitator, which has happened to me before? So I've got these anxieties that I need to overcome. Now, I get this question just about every time that I quote training or do a proposal. I get the question, have you worked in my industry before? Have you worked with this kind of environment? So, then I had one the other day. What experience do you have in selling trucks? So I said, well, we've sold graders. Is that enough? Or we've sold cars. Is that enough? So you get a lot of these anxiety questions. Because remember, if you're learning and development or you are going to your boss saying, I'd really like to do the training. Shame, we had one where we did training with people and the comment to them was, okay, now you've attended the training, we expect a 20% increase. So the poor salespeople said, we don't want to come on training because now our management is putting even more pressure on us. That's an anxiety. So I need to know how to reduce that. So please, I'm really saying this with tears in my eyes, and it's the last thing for today, is please try this. Anybody who works with me, Jean, Tracy, Kerry will all tell you that this has become absolutely life-changing in our business. We've seen a spike in sales because we are doing this. And the quality of our conversations, the quality of our proposals, and the care we take in reducing inertia and anxiety has definitely become better. So please, what I'm asking you is we'll send you the spreadsheet anyway. So you get it for attending today, plus the recording. What we're asking you to do, though, is to try this and then book time with us to get some feedback, just to make sure that you're clear on how it works. Okay, so that's what I wanted to chat about. We always leave a little bit of time in case there are any questions or comments. So if you have any questions or comments now, please feel free to type them in. We can even unmute you if you need to. I'd really like just a little bit of feedback on what we've covered today and any questions or comments you have. So a whole lot of thumbs up again. Yes, the easy crowd. So I'm hoping you found this helpful. Please, you've got our details if you would like to chat. Vanessa's got a question. Jean, do you know how to unmute everybody?
That was unkind, Tim. Let's see.
There is an unmute everybody.
Is there? Like, tell me where it is.
Let me just check quickly. Sorry, I didn't know how to do this. Oh dear, it's not good, eh?
It isn't.
I mean, we practiced this.
Did we?
Sorry, my fault.
Just
I'm
checking.
sorry. Would you mind just typing the question in? I apologize. That's terribly unprofessional. We'll figure out how to do it. Yeah, thanks, Vanessa. Any other questions you'd like to type in and we can answer? Again, otherwise, just send us an email or we can chat. I'm really keen to get your question, Vanessa. I'll desperately try and unmute everybody again. Just give me a sec. There really is a way of doing it. Unless it's the other version.
I think it's the other version, Tim.
Meeting options. It's here. Allow mic for attendees. There we go. Well, I've just allowed mic and there we go.
Ah, there we go.
I've just allowed mic and camera. There we go. Right.
Hello.
I think you should be able to. Hi, Vanessa.
Thank you. Good. How are you, Tim?
Yeah, sorry about that.
No problem. I couldn't type quick enough. Sorry. No, it was more feedback than a question, but I just want to say thank you. And Julie, because I've actually been trying to work on a big deal for about a month and a half now, and it has been a bit of touch and go with communication between her and myself, and her name's actually also Vanessa. But she did respond eventually, like this past week, saying she will get it sorted out this week, and they are unhappy with their current service provider, and my pricing was way better. And one of the questions that I asked initially to her was, you know, would it have to wait till financial year end? And she was like, no, because it's better pricing, so it's not a point of, you know, they need a budget extra for it, or whatever the case may be. But now about this whole anxiety, I feel that that's where she's sitting, or where we're sitting. So I just feel like it's given me a bit of more of a ideas on how to approach her again, or talk to her, you know, have another meeting, ask different questions. So yeah, it was actually just really helpful for me right now, because I have been a bit stagnant with the deal. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
So Vanessa, something that we always look at is when you do your proposal, a lot of people get stuck there. So they do all the work, they submit the proposal, then everything goes quiet, and you get chirp, chirp, chirp. The one thing that works is to have, we call them accelerators. So to have a couple of additional resources that you can send over time that isn't purely the following up mail or the following up conversation, because that's a horribly uncomfortable conversation to have.
Yes.
So if you can have something like, you know, you send the proposal, a couple of days later, you send a customer reference. So you say, you know, just to, you know, make you feel more comfortable, this is how we did this. I had one where it was a course on negotiation skills. And I knew there was somebody else involved in the decision. We were against someone. So what I did was I quoted it, couple of days later, I sent a detailed overview of exactly how we do the negotiation, how we run the course, what the exercises are, because I knew he was a very detailed guy. And
Yes.
afterwards, he said to me, that was the thing that he was impressed with, that there was just this little additional accelerator. So reference
Yes.
stories, business cases, videos, anything that you can do that accelerates the deal, that the
Yeah.
person can smile at, rather than have you made a decision yet? Because those
Yeah.
are horribly uncomfortable conversations to have.
Absolutely. And the example of I think it was a pull factor about taking the car for a test drive. We obviously we rent our dispensers and service them, etc. But we've got a new one where it's kind of an air freshener or whatever. I won't go into the detail, but I can always actually trial it, and that's what I've thought now. I can put it up in their bathrooms with their current supplier, whatever the case might be. That new product of ours would overpower any air freshener that they've got in there.
Yeah, that's
but
it.
also just for the current, constant reminding of Bidvest, the smelling of it, the scent. So that was also very nice. Thank you.
That's great feedback. We once worked with a air conditioning company, and they would put very nice stuff in the air conditioners without even people asking. They would just rock up, chuck the stuff in the air cons. and it smelled so nice that people said, "And we want more." And they said, "Well, can we talk to you about air conditioning?" So, anytime we can be creative, especially when you're selling a commodity, you need to do something a little different. And by the way, you spot on with fragrance. There's very little research on this, but they say smell is a significant influencing factor.
Absolutely.
So if you can have a fragrance of your own, the hotels do this a lot. If you go to the one and only, it smells like lemons.
Yes.
That's something to consider.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. Thank you for your feedback. Any other comments, questions from today? Thank you. That's great feedback. All good.
Tim, can I close off? Do you mind?
Yeah, just out of interest, John, can we get feedback on the time of day?
I have asked the question, so yes, anybody that we would welcome any comments or thoughts. The mic is open, so you can just shout out. I know we got more registrations today than what actually were able to make it. We had 33 people in the room, which is awesome. But we had 50
Does
registrations,
this time of day
so
work
we
for you?
might find that the later afternoon is not quite as successful as what we'd like. Any thoughts from the people in the room? The mics are open. You can just talk.
Jean, sorry, can I say the
right,
last one was exactly the same. So we had 46 or something, and it was also same numbers. So I don't think that's a deciding thing.
It's not final.
Just really keen to understand. Yeah, we're keen to understand if we should stick to this 4 o'clock, or if lunch works for you.
Perhaps you should ask the people that aren't here.
Good point. Thanks for
Are you guys
Keegan.
happy with this time?
Good point.
So,
I will
Keegan,
send a
if you're
mail
here-
out about it.
Okay. So Keegan, if you're here, you don't mind the 4 o'clock is what you say?
No, absolutely not.
Brilliant.
I'd like to remind everybody else, everybody in the room, that we've got our next session on the 15th of May. It's also a Wednesday. I've scheduled it for 3:30 because we're experimenting. It's called Myths and Monsters. Sadly for you guys, it's going to be me talking to you all about the myths and monsters that stop us from achieving our successes in sales. I look forward to seeing you all there. Please, if you're interested, or if you know people that you think we should invite, please feel free to send us the email. You can send it to Tim, you can send it to Jean, you can send it to Tracy. You can put it in the comments right now if you like. Tracy, we're agreeing to send everybody a copy of the recording, right?
Yeah. We'll
Okay,
send it out
including
tomorrow.
those that weren't able to make it today?
Yes, definitely.
Awesome.
Everybody registered.
Everybody registered. I wonder, Tim, what do you think? Will the decision equation spreadsheet be valuable to those that weren't here? Maybe.
Well, if they watch the video,
video.
definitely.
Yeah, that's fair. All right.
No, we'll send it to everybody. Yeah.
Please, folks, don't be shy. Spread the invites around. If you didn't get an invite for Myths and Monsters, please let us know. It is important. I'm going to, Tracy, would you mind putting your email address into the chat line for us? And I'll put mine in as well. In fact, that's what I'm doing right now. Tim, I think that's it for the day. Thank you guys so much for being here and being so interactive with us. And we look forward to seeing you all soon.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, lovely seeing everybody again.
Cheers, everybody. Thanks so
Bye.
much.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Cheers.
hey, bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Sean, we'll just close the session and then they'll be fine.
Without leaving. You know how to do that?